Hi, Norm.
Hi, Ernie. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I do. We are on page 133 in volume 14.
Am I here?
Yeah, page 133.
Hello, Norm. Hi, Doc. Good evening, Ernie.
Hi, Bernie.
Babe.
How much bread must one eat to be obligated birchas hamazon? So, Har Chaim, page 133 in volume 14. We're talking about how much bread creates the chiyuv for birchas hamazon. So it says in Masechet Brachos Mem Amud Aleph, Ad Kamim Mizamnin, Ad Kazayis. You have to eat a kazayis, then you're obligated in a zima. Ad Kibetz. It's a larger shear, Kibetz. The size of the kazayis is 27 grams. A beitza is double, 54 grams. An average slice of bread is a kazayis. Now, this Gemara seems to be discussing how much bread you have to eat for three people to have a zimun. Tosfos writes that the discussion applies to just the chiyuv of birchas hamazon. Tosfos says there in brachas, hu adin birchas hamazon, below zimun. The shear is the same to obligate birchas hamazon without zimun. El rabus hashmina dafilo kazayis mezamin. The chiddush is that even as for as low as a kazayis, you would need to make a zimun. Again, we're on page 133. The Rishonim disagree as to whether this minimum size is of biblical or rabbinic origin. The Rambam rules in favor of the first opinion, that one recites birchas hamazon when eating kazayis, and that this measure is drabana. Mitzvah saseh min Torah, says the Rambam, in Hilchos Brachos Aleph Aleph, Achra achilas mazon, shenema v'achalta v'savata v'rachta, es Hashem lokecha. Ve'eno chayv in Torah, ela im kein saveya, unless he was satiated. Shenema v'achalta v'savata. U'medivrei soifrin, achal afilu kazayis mavarech achra. So, min Torah, it would be until you're satiated. But the Chachamim gave us a chiyuv even with kazayis. That's the way the Rambam learns. The Ravid says that even if you consume a kazayis, that creates a doraisa obligation. Ein advarim ketikunan, vein maskimin lalacha. He doesn't agree with the Rambam. The Kaimelon, achila kazayis v'kebetz doraisuhu. There are people who eat a kazayis and they're full. The Shulchan Aruch writes that one must consume a minimum of a kazayis to become obligated birchas hamazon. The Mishnah Berurah understands that the Shulchan Aruch rules, according to the Rambam, that this obligation is merely rabbinic, as the Torah obligation only takes effect if one is satiated. Shir achil levarach aleh birchas hamazon b'kazayis. And the Mishnah Berurah comment there, Kuf Pedalet, b'kazayis, hainu min rabbanan. You fulfilled the mitzvah of birchas hamazon on a rabbinic level. To fulfill it on a deraisa level, you have to eat enough to make you full. Shnava v'chalta v'savata. V'shir shvia, mashma m'sefer achinuch. The Sefer Achinuch in Parshas Eikev says, Eino shava b'chol adam. Everybody has a different stomach size. Some people need to eat a lot. Some people need to eat a little. Kol echad yodea sfiyaso. Everybody knows his own when he's reached his limit. Let's say a person has trained himself, he eats very little just to live on. Well, for that person, that's sfia, and therefore his benching would have a deraisa dika stance. The poskim disagree as to the length of time when one must consume a kazayas. The Magen Avraham says, means if you nibble on something for 5 hours, and after the 5 hours you've eaten the kazayas, so that doesn't give you an obligation to bench. You have to eat the kazayas within a certain period. It's the same like achilas matzah on Pesach. If you nibble on a piece of matzah when you make the bracha al achilas matzah, you have to eat it bichdei achilas pras. The time that it takes you to consume a half a loaf, it varies between 2 and 9 minutes. Most of us hold 9 minutes. It's the same thing when you eat a prohibition. If you eat nevela or chazir or dam or any of those things, and let's say that those prohibitions are bikazais or chametz. Well, chametz is osher b'mashahu, but also you wouldn't be chayiv the punishment unless you ate it. Also, it's got to be eaten b'chdei achilas pras within a 9 minute for you to get malchus or for you to get kores by chametz. It's not if you delay the eating, it's osir chatzi shir osir min Torah, but you won't get the punishment unless you ate it b'chdei achilas pras. Here, the same thing. In order to have a chiyuv birchas hamazon, you have to eat the bread within the 9 minute period. Says the Magen Avraham, Im ochal ma'at v'chazav ochal ma'at, he's nibbling. He's eating a little. In shor yosef v'chechilas pras. It took him 20 minutes, nearly day mitzdarif. It does not combine, and you would not have a chiyuv benching. The Prima Godim posits that if one eats slowly, one would still be obligated midaraisa if you satiate, even if it takes him longer to eat. Imiu machal, it's different, because it says loy soichal chametz, or it says loy soichlu kol nevela. So they're achila. It's not tied to satiation. So achila, it's got to be within 9 minutes. Otherwise, it's not achila. But here, achalta v'sovata. It's not just tolein achila. If you got satiated after you nibbled on it for 20 minutes, you'd be chayiv according to Prima Godim to bench. Umiyu mochalat shesova birchas hamos l'chayiv in Torah. Af shochel mat mat. V'rakim mochel kazayis to mevorach birchas hamos. Ve'achalta azramina diyoyis v'mechtechilas pras ein mitzdarif. Let's say you ate the kazayas, and that fulfills the ve'achalta, but you're not satiated. Then we'll say there's no itzdarfus. And the Prima Godim ended by saying tzorchiyun. The Mishnah Berurah accepts the ruling of the Prima Godim as the halacha, that one is still obligated birchas hamazon, and if one is satiated, even if one ate very slowly. Though in the Sharat Tziyun, the Chofetz Chaim acknowledges that he too is not certain about the matter. Now, the Vizos HaBracha rules that one is obligated birchas hamazon if one eats a kazayis within the measure of kedei achilas pras, though he knows that the opinion of the Prima Godim as well. The Vizos HaBracha relates to the definition of kedei achilas pras, which the author states is 4 minutes, based upon the opinion of Rav Chaim Noah, though he then mentions the opinion of Moshe Feinstein that Kidei Achilas Pras is less than 3 minutes. Is Yaakov here? Who is the iPhone, which doesn't have a face?
Me, Ernie. George.
Oh, hi, George. Good.
How are you?
Good. Hi, George.
I'm sorry I couldn't be there yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I'm on call at the VA and it just got crazy.
Okay. Okay. It was all good. We'll go out ourselves and we'll
Please.
So it says, "Kidei li'schai b'birchas hamazon, yesh lechol me'apashir kazayis." In order to be obligated in benching, you have to eat a kazayis, which we said is 27 grams or 1 slice of bread. B'toch perek zman shel kidei achilas pras. You have to eat it within this term called kidei achilas pras. Shu arba dakos. According to Rav Chaim Noah, it's 4 minutes. B'chein or li'echad migdol li'ador. Rav El Yashiv told him that. And the Kaf HaChaim also said 4 minutes. Yesh shekasu shetov lachmir lechol kazayis pas b'pachos misholosh dakos. You should eat your bread within 3 minutes. Kidei sheyuchal levarach b'chas hamazon bli pikpuk. That's Rav Moshe Feinstein said that. The Dasa Prima Godim, im ochal pas kidei tzvia. If you ate bread to the point where you were satiated, even though he nibbled, that was the chumrah of the Prima Godim, that even if it took you 20 minutes to eat it, if you're satiated at that point, you'd have to bench. The Mishnah Berurah himself in the Shar Tzion says he's in doubt. And even the Prima Godim was B'tzorchion. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, Machriya, V'im irish yevshel olechol kazayis, b'chtei achilas pras. If he cannot eat the kazayis within that time, yesh l'horosh lo levarach b'chas hamazon. He said, you don't have to bench. Because remember, we always, yeah. $137. One who's let's say he's in doubt. He thinks he may have benched, but he's not sure. What's the halacha if one cannot remember if he recited Birchas Hamazon or not? Since the obligation is biblically mandated, it stands to reason that in case of suffix, he's got to recite it again. And that's how the Talmud Yerushalmi rules. Says Brachos Yerushalmi, Rav Zeira b'shem Rav Yiriyah suffix birich al mezoni suffix birich tzarich levarich t'chsiv v'achalta b'savat v'eirach. The Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch rule the same way. Misha achal v'shachach v'lo birich. This is Rambam Hilchos Brachos. Somebody ate, forgot whether he benched. Im niskar kodim she's akel ha'maichel sheb'meya. If he remembered before the food was fully digested in his stomach, choizer mavarich, so he has to bench. Nis akel hamazon sheb'meya, if he's fully digested it, ein a choizer. V'chein im nela mimenu, he literally doesn't know. He's forgotten. Lo yada im birich olo birich choizer mavarich. Vushlo nis akel hamazon, as long as the food is not fully digested. And says the Shulchan Aruch, Achal v'eni yodeim birich birchas hamazon imlan. Tzarich levarach misafek v'neishi min haTorah. The Mishnah Berurah notes that this is the case as long as he is satiated, and therefore he has a chiyuv d'oraisa to bench. V'neishi min haTorah, v'davka kishesaveya, but that's only if he's satiated. The lo saveya, if he's not satiated, the Rava poskim M'Rabanan M'Rabanan. Benching is only rabbinic then. Komakom royally reish shamayim b'nistapik in birich olo. A yirei shamayim who's in doubt whether he benched or not. Afilu shelo ochal ela kazayis. Even if he only ate a kazayis, yitol yodav yivarach hamotzi. He should wash his hands again, make another motzi v'yochal kazayis v'yivarach b'chas hamotzi. The poskim disagree as to whether one who is repeating Birchas Hamazon out of doubt recites the fourth bracha of Atov V'Meitiv, which is only M'Rabanan. According to Magen Avram, you do recite it together with the remainder of Birchas Hamazon. Tzarech levarach misafek v'tzarech levar gam bracha daled. The lol is also, but otherwise it's a bizoyon to that bracha. The Yalkut Yosef rules that one does not recite it, due to the principle of Safek Brachos Lahakel, that since it's only rabbinic and it's in a doubt, because maybe you said it, you shouldn't recite the bracha again. Supik and Birch Birchas Hamazon lo, Kishemavarch misafek lo yivarch Birchas Atov V'Meitiv. The Safek Brachos Lahakel. That makes sense. 139. What about the obligation of women in Birchas Hamazon? Now that we are familiar with some of the parameters concerning the obligation of men to recite Birchas Hamazon, we can discuss the obligation of women for Birchas Hamazon. At first glance, one might think that the responsibility to thank Hashem for one's sustenance should logically be equally applicable to men and women. And that seems to be the implication of the Gemara in Brachos 49. Moreover, Birchas Hamazon is not tied to time, and women are generally obligated in positive, non-time-bound mitzvos. The Mishnah in Kiddushin spells out that principle. Nevertheless, the Gemara in Brachos is uncertain as to whether women are biblically or rabbinically obligated Birchas Hamazon. The Mishnah in Brachos, Noshim, Chayavim b'tfila, Mimezuzah, u'Birchas Hamazon. They're obligated in these mitzvahs. Armalei Ravina L'Rava, Noshim Birchas Hamazon, D'Oraisa D'Rabbanan. L'may nafkamina lafuke Rabbi b'dei chayvason. Can a woman be motzi the public by reciting Birchas Hamazon, and we would listen to her? I amet D'Oraisa, asi D'Oraisa, mafik D'Oraisa. So if the status of the obligation is on the same level as men, and it's D'Oraisa, then she would be able to be Yotzeyas. So if the obligation is only rabbinic, and my obligation is D'Oraisa, it's as if she's not obligated at all. And you would not be able to, she would not be able to meet Mimotzi somebody. So Rashi and Tosfos disagree about why women would possibly be obligated only on a D'Rabbanan level. According to Rashi, Eretz Yisrael is the subject of the second bracha of Birchas Hamazon. And the division of Eretz Yisrael in the time of Yoshua occurred through the males, not the females. Rashi says, "D'chsiv ala aretz hatova shenosan la, ve'aretz lo nosan l'nekevus l'schalik." The land was not given to women. V'mishum b'nos Tzlovchad. Well, there were some women. Tzlovchad had no sons, so the women inherited. Chelek aviyim did not. They actually took the share of their father. Shahayim yotze Mitzrayim. He left Mitzrayim. Tosfos suggests that the uncertainty stems from the statement of the Gemara that one has not fulfilled one's obligation for Birchas Hamazon without mentioning the concepts of Brit and Torah. Since women are not obligated in Brit Milah or Torah study, perhaps they are exempt from the Torah obligation of Birchas Hamazon. Toisvis brachos chaf beis noshim. Eli yeshlomer the time mishum dechsiv al brischa shechamtanto b'yivsareinu. By virtue of the covenant that you placed in our flesh. Val Torah's chashin maritanu, and the Torah, the noshim lisnu lo b'bris v'lo b'soira. Women are not obligated in bris or Torah. V'armin lekamon mishlo omer bris v'Torah b'chas hamazon leyatzidei chovoso. Whoever didn't mention this bris and learning Torah b'chas hamazon didn't fulfill his obligation. V'hasha kamabayle kiven de lomatz l'meim bris v'Torah. Since we have a question now, since if somebody doesn't mention those things, then lo hava M'Rabanan. Maybe it drops the status of the benching just to a rabbinic level. O Dilma, kiva de lo shaykh b'hu, havishapi d'oraisa. They're not relevant to them, but benching is still midoraisa. Vad l'kamon ma'ir ba'anoshim b'shaykh b'ris v'toira. Maybe it's only a man who's mechuyev in bris and Torah who doesn't mention it, then there's no obligation. But since women have no shaykhs, then it makes no difference whether they said it or not. So in any event, the Gemara did not reach a definitive conclusion as to whether women are obligated in Birchas Hamazon on a Torah or rabbinic level. And the halacha remains in doubt. It should be noted that Rishonim dispute the halacha. The Shulchan Aruch bases his ruling upon the Rambam, who rules that the uncertainty is not resolved. The Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah rule that women are obligated on a rabbinic level definitively. The Rashba, among others, rules that women are obligated on a Torah level, based upon the simple understanding of the Gemara earlier. The Bir Halacha, written by the Mishnah Berurah, references multiple Rishonim who agree with the Rashba. So the Shulchan Aruch says, Noshim chayavis b'birchas hamazon. The Safek, he actually codifies the law that it's in doubt. Imem chayavis b'deraisa umotzias es hanoshim. Is it mideraisa and therefore they can be motzi a man? Oh, einen chayavis M'Rabanan ve'einen motzias l'mishein chiyuv el M'Rabanan. So one practical difference, according to Shulchan Aruch, that stems from this question, relates to whether a woman can fulfill the obligation for a man. Another concerns whether a woman who's unsure whether she recited Birchas Hamazon must recite it out of doubt. The Mishnah Berurah quotes a machlokas among the Achronim about this point. Because Mibnei Shu Safek, the fact that whether they have to bench is in doubt. We hold that they are not motzi men who eat to satiation because their chiyuv is deraisa and we're not sure about theirs. Kazav Bishar Ephraim, who's a later posek, Isha sha'achla kedei svia. If a woman ate to satiation, v'nistapka in bircha, she forgot whether she benched or not. Chayeves levarich. She has to bench. V'chein hiskim b'chaye adam of mogen giborim. Achen b'chidush Rabbi Akiva. V'chein b'birka Yosef pasku. She'ein etzricha lazol levarich. V'chein mitzadei prima godim kol mokem nira. Darotz elismach al dashar Ephraim. If you want to rely on the Shai Ephraim, that if a woman ate kedei svia, she could be motzi, or that if she forgot whether she has to bench, whether she benched or not, she can bench. In limchos biyad. So the Bir Halacha cites a group of Rishonim who maintain that women are obligated on a Torah level, and a woman who's unsure if she recites Birchas Hamazon may rely on them if she desires. The Yalkut Yosef suggests a compromise, that she contemplate the words in her mind without actually enunciating the words. Isha sha'achla v'sava. a woman who ate and is satiated. V'nistapka and bircha birchas hamazon lo. She forgot whether she benched or not. Ein tzricha levarach misafek. She doesn't have to bench out of a doubt. Mikol makom tov shetis'ara birchas hamazon beliba. She shouldn't enunciate the words. She should just think about it. Hoil das a Rambam vasmag here kedibur dami. According to the Rambam, thinking about something is like speaking. If she really was not machayev to make this bracha, then if she enunciates it, she's doing a bracha l'vatala. But a bracha l'vatala is not with hirhur. If she can listen to somebody else bench, she chavin lotziyah dechovosu, who will be machavin to be motzi her, v'gam iti chavin lotziyah dechovin. She has the same kavona. Shapir dami. That's preferable. Until when may one beside birchas hamazon? That means what's the time limit? We saw already it's related to when the food gets digested in our intestines. Most people recite birchas hamazon shortly after they finish eating. Sometimes, though, one delays its recitation for various reasons. What is the longest amount of time after eating that one can still recite birchas hamazon? The Mishnah in Gemara Masechta Brachos addresses this question. Ad Mosai Mavarech, says the Mishnah. Ad Kidei Shis Akil Hamazon Shebemeir. Until the food is digested in the intestines. The Gemara asks, Kamashir equal, what is that amount? On Rav Yochanan, Kozman She'ein Roev. Once he becomes hungry again, that's a siman that the food is digested. Reish Lakish Amar Kozman Sheyitzma Machmas Achilas. As long as he is thirsty because of what he ate. Amale Rav Yemer Bar Shamal Mar Zutra. Amale Rav Yemer Bar Shizul Mar Zutra. Mi Amar Reish Lakish Achi. Did Reish Lakish actually say this? Rav Ami Amar Reish Lakish. Kamashir equal Kedei Lalech Arba Mila. The time it takes to walk 4 mil. Loi Kasha Kan Bachila Meruba. If he ate a big meal, that's if you ate a big meal, then the shear is the walk of 4 mil. If you ate a small meal, it has to do with when you first get thirsty. A meal is assumed to equal the distance that one can walk in 18 minutes. Some say it's 22 minutes. So the 4 meal is 72 minutes. According to Rabbi Yochanan, the definition of the time when the food is digested, until which one may recite birchas hamazon, is until one is hungry again. According to the Gemara's understanding of Reish Lakish, it depends on the size of the meal. Eating a large meal, you can wait up to the amount of time it takes to walk 4 meal, which is 72 minutes. After eating a small meal, you can wait only as long as you're still thirsty from the consumption of the food. Rabbeinu Yonah, following the Rif, rules in accordance with Rav Yochanan that the duration of digestion extends for as long as one is not yet hungry again. But if one begins to get hungry, even if the food has not yet been entirely digested, you can't recite birchas hamazon. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, as long as you're not hungry, then you can continue to bench. Once he becomes hungry again, Aval pi shelo nisak eladai, the gamri. Even if it has not been digested. Even shemaschil is achel, but it's begun to digest. It's kamosh nisak eladai. It's as if it was fully digested. Dainin and lay ve'enim avarcha lavachaka. And you can't bench anymore. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch rules. Ad emasa yochel avarich. Ad shisach lamazon shebemeyav. Kama shiuro. How much is that amount? Kozman shein roiv machlosois achila. Once he's not hungry anymore. Umishash shehischil lios roiv. Once you start becoming hungry, even though it's not fully digested, it's it's exactly like the Rabbeinu Yonah's pshat. What is the halacha where one is still in the middle of the meal after the food has already been digested? For example, one is at a Shabbos meal or meal of a simcha, where the participants remain for a long time after the main part of the meal is completed. Can they still recite Birchas Hamazon? The Magen Avraham writes that this may not be an appropriate practice, but he suggests that perhaps if one continues to snack or eat dessert, that is considered as if the remainder of the food has not been digested. L'sudos gdolos, if you're at a 4 or 5 hour meal, the Famim Yoshim Dal Rehei shows Kodesh Mavarchim. Veinu Nochel Nadas Rashi. And this is not good according to Rashi. Rashi explains that within the Gemara's resolution for Reish Lakish, one may recite Birchas Hamazon within the time of 4 meal after eating a large amount. While the measure of whether one is still thirsty as a result of the meal first eating a small amount. The Magen Avraham is commenting that according to Rashi, one who does not recite Birchas Hamazon for a few hours has certainly overstepped the limit of 4 meal, which is only 72 minutes. However, even Rashi is merely explaining the opinion of Reish Lakish, and is by no means clear that Rashi rules in accordance with his opinion as the practical halacha. So the Magen Avraham says, Lachen yesh levarach miyad. If you're going to sit at the table for 5 hours, you should first bench within the 72-minute time. Some say, since they're still drinking and eating snacks, it's kolonis akal dami, and this extends this time limit through which one can bench. Is there a difference in the measurement for digestion between a small meal and a larger meal? According to the Abu Dram, the amount of time for digestion of a small meal is the measurement of a meal, which is accepted to be 72 minutes based on the passage in the Gemara. Ad Mosai Umavarech, Ad Kadesh Yisak Lamazon B'Meyav, Kamashir equal, Kozman She'en Aroev, Machmas Osachil, if you're not hungry anymore. Uvachil Muetas are b'milim. If you ate a small meal, it's 4 meal, which is 72 minutes. On the other hand, the Magen Avraham writes that the measure of waiting, the time of walking 4 meal, falls Reish Lakish, but since the halacha falls Rav Yochanan, the size of the meal makes no difference. We don't make a distinction whether you ate a big meal or a small meal. We hold like Rav Yochanan. The explanation of Rashi to the conclusion of the Gemara is cited. Most commentators don't accept the interpretation of Tosfos. Tosfos understands the answer of the Gemara to mean that if one eats a small amount, one may recite Birchas Hamazon for the time it takes to walk 4 meal. While if one eats a large amount, then one may recite Birchas Hamazon as long as one is still thirsty. That might be longer. The Magen Avraham follows the answer of Tosfos, but maintains that the Gemara's answer applies only to Reish Lakish. Rav Yochanan, on the other hand, holds that the latest time for reciting Birchas Hamazon always depends upon whether one is still satiated. It would see that the Abu Dram understands that even Rav Yochanan accepts the smaller measurement of Reish Lakish of a meal and only disagrees with the larger measurement. Therefore, he rules, including the Taz, that one always has 72 minutes within which to recite Birchas Hamazon, even for a smaller meal. On the other hand, the Mishnah Berurah cites Achronim, who hold that one may still recite Birchas Hamazon after a small meal for at least 72 minutes, regardless of whether he feels full. It would seem then that one may recite Birchas Hamazon for an even longer period after a big meal. They estimated the time frame as 72 minutes. In this period of time, you clearly have an obligation to bench because the food hasn't digested. Even a small meal. It should be noticed that the Mishnah Berurah also cites the opposing opinion of the Mogen Avram immediately after this passage. But the Mogen Avram would agree with the Mishnah Berurah that one has more than 72 minutes after eating a large meal, as one would likely still be full for much longer than that amount of time. The Vizos HaBracha presents a list of guidelines concerning until what time one may recite Birchas Hamazon, and confirms that one may recite it after 72 minutes if one still feels full. And he goes through the whole algorithm. A person ate to satiation. Yesh bracha achrona. There's a bracha achrona to be recited at shivim v'shtayim dakot, 72 minutes. Achar gemar achila. Ki b'soch perek zman zeh hamazon od lo yisakal b'meya. The food has not been digested. B'diavad afim kvar avru 72 dakos. B'diavad, even if 72 minutes have passed, yachol avar kol zman she'ein aroiv. He's still allowed to bench as long as he's not hungry. Because of that meal. Kloimar, she'adainu saveh mimasha achal b'tchila. He's still satiated. Im shah me'osa achila. If he waited until he started feeling hungry again, he's not famished. If you wait until you're hungry again, you lose the birchas achrona. Shor yoser means 72 dakos. If you waited beyond 72 minutes. He's not sure if he's hungry. As long as when he started the meal, he ate a piece of bread until he was satiated. Good idea to eat a kazayas bread before you bench if you're in doubt whether the food is digested in your stomach. The Halacha Berurah takes the same general approach and writes that one may still recite Birchas Hamazon until 6 hours have passed if one is yet not hungry again. He ate a big bread meal. He forgot to bench. If he feels that he's not hungry yet, the upper limit of time is 6 hours. If he feels hungry, even if 6 hours haven't passed, at 5 hours he's hungry, he's not allowed to bench anymore.
So Ernie, just to be clear, the 72 minutes is from the last thing you eat, and the size of the last thing you eat doesn't really matter as long as it just keeps the clock ticking.
I was thinking the 72 minutes is when you started eating.
Well, that wouldn't make sense. Because you could have a 2 hour meal.
Right. So we said that Me'ikar adin, you should try to bench, but if it's beyond 72 minutes and you're still full, you can still bench.
Right, and we also said, and I forgot who said it, that you can prolong that 72 minutes as long as you
By
continue,
snacking,
right?
drinking and snacking.
Right. So do we hold that? We hold that, right?
Yes.
So I mean, yeah. So but there's no portion amount that's required for that drinking and snacking.
No, but you have to remember they said they qualified it that when you first ate the bread, you have to feel satiated.
Right.
And then the
Okay. Gotcha.
eating, the snacking is a siman that your food hasn't digested in your
Gotcha.
digestive tract. That was the point of that. 146. You reciting Birchas Hamazon in a different location. What's the proper location to recite Birchas Hamazon? The Mishnah and the Gemara do not say explicitly. We will say that lechatchila, a person should recite Birchas Hamazon in the same location as he ate. What is the halacha if one did not do so, and he moved locations? May he recite Birchas Hamazon in his current location, or must he return to the spot that he ate? The Mishnah Masech Lebracha states that Beis Shammai Beis Hillel disagreed. Mishnah. Misha achal v'shachach v'lo birech. Somebody ate and did not recite Birchas Hamazon. Beis Shammai oimrim yachzor limkomo. Should go back to his place v'yivarech. Beis Hillel oimrim yivarech b'makom shenizkar. Wherever he remembered that he didn't bench, he could be there and bench. Machlokas b'shachachach. That machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is when he forgot. Aval b'mezid, divra kol yachzor l'makom. If he purposely didn't bench, he should go back to where he ate. Pshita v'shachach, it says clearly he forgot. Maybe b'mezid also he could bench where he is. The fact that the Brisa start off by saying he forgot to show you how far Beis Shammai goes, that you have to go back to your original place. Kamash Malon, that the machlokas is in both places, or that there's no disagreement there. That's according to Beis Hillel. One does not have to return if he forgot to recite Birchas Hamazon before leaving the location in which he ate. But if he intentionally planned to recite Birchas Hamazon elsewhere, he must return. According to Beis Shammai, you return in any event. The Rambam rules in accordance with Beis Hillel, as we would expect. But he adds that even if one left intentionally, without reciting Birchas Hamazon, if he then recites Birchas Hamazon in his new location, he has post facto fulfilled his obligation. The Rambam also notes that lechatchila, one should always recite Birchas Hamazon in the location of one ate. So this comes up a lot if you're going to a Shalom Zachar after Friday night meal. Technically, based on what we're learning here, you should bench where you ate. People sometimes think, oh, I'm going to eat there, so I'm not going to bench. I'm going to go eat there, and I can bench there. That's only b'di'evet. L'chatchila, you should, at least based on this Rambam, you should bench at where you ate. He forgot to bench. He remembered before the food was digested. That's Beis Hillel. He makes the bracha wherever he is. Am I amazing? If he did it on purpose, but if he made the bracha where he was, he's yotze. Even standing, if he's walking, or the optimal way of reciting these brachas is where you ate and sitting. On the other hand, Rabbeinu Yonah writes that some Gaonim rule indeed with Beis Shammai that you have to go back. Well, in Pascha Mikzas Gaonim Rav Shmuel ben Chafni Pascha Halacha Beis Shammai Shafilu b'Shoichek. Even if one forgot, Rabbeinu Yonah explains in the continuation that they based this ruling upon the fact that the Gemara reports that one student followed the opinion of Beis Shammai and returned after forgetting to recite Birchas Hamazon in the location that he ate, and he was rewarded by finding a wallet full of money. In contrast, another student followed the opinion of Beis Hillel and purposely recited Birchas Hamazon elsewhere, and he was eaten by a lion. Since even Beis Hillel agrees that one must return when intentionally planning to recite Birchas Hamazon elsewhere. So, in the opinion of the later Gaonim, the first incident proves that one should follow Beis Shammai. It should be noted that Rabbeinu Yonah himself disagrees with this opinion, and also that although Beis Hillel praised someone who follows Beis Shammai, they do not require returning to one's original location to recite Birchas Hamazon. So the Shulchan Aruch rules, in accordance with the Rambam, that one should recite Birchas Hamazon where one ate, and even if one left intentionally, one must return. B'di'evet, if he recited it in a different location, he fulfills his obligation. The Ramah cites the view of the Gaonim that if one intentionally left before reciting Birchas Hamazon, he has not fulfilled his obligation by benching in this second place. He has to come back. Shulchan Aruch, Misha achal b'makom echad, if he is eating in one place, tzarich levarach kodim sheyakom imkomo. He should bench before he moves his feet from that place. Im yatzam imkomo v'lo birech. If he did leave without benching, im hayah b'mezid yachzor l'imkomo v'yivarech. If he was b'mezid, he has to come back. Im birch b'makom sheniskar yatza. But the Ramah has dafka l'dasa Rambam. Aval l'dasa rosh t'sfir l'daf b'shogig yachzor l'imkomo l'chadchila. B'mezid af b'di'evet lo yatza. So Beis Hillel, the Ramah is learning that you have to come back no matter what. V'imhaya b'shogig la Rambam yivarach b'makom sheniskar. Rabbeinu Yonah v'arosh gamu yachzor l'makom yivarech. The Mishnah Berurah cites Achronim who rule that if one already recited Birchas Hamazon, you don't have to return, even if he left on purpose. If he has not recited it yet, he should return, even if he left without reciting it unintentionally, except for cases where there's where this is excessively difficult. The Dasa Rambam, Ritzono Lamar Desfir Lei, the Samach the B'Shogig Af L'Chadchila Yuchal Avach B'Makom Sheniskar. That if he did it accidentally, and that means he didn't do it b'mezi. So then Af L'Chadchila Yuchal Avach B'Makom Sheniskar. Dailanu Im Nachmer b'mezi b'L'Chadchila. It's only mazid that we make him to go back. But if he did it b'shogig, no. The rosh was machmir, that even if b'shogig, you got to go back to your place. And b'mezid af b'di'evad lo yotza. However, linyan halach yiskimu achronim dein tzorich lachzor levarech. Afil haya mezid b'alicha b'bracha kanal. That even if you left b'mezi, that I'm not going to bench. It's not like you forgot. And you bench in the other place, you're going to be yotzei, according to the Mishnah Berurah. Yazor Kol Mivarach, because of Achronim, the Chen Nochum Linog Lemaisa, Im Lo Shu Shasat Chat, as you call this Mochas Rishona. You should still always go back, unless there's not enough time. Then you can rely on this first opinion that you'll be yotzei. According to Mishnah Berurah, if one forgot to recite Birchas Hamazon unintentionally before leaving, and extremely difficult to return, one may recite Birchas Hamazon where one remembers, and you can rely on the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch also mentions another option of eating additional bread in a new location, which obviates the need to return to one's original location to recite Birchas Hamazon, according to all opinions. Says the Shulchan Aruch, he has to go back when there's no bread. Aval yesh lo pas in the new place, yarchel b'makom hashem miyat v'yivarech. Rak shlo yeirov ma'achila b'shay. You shouldn't be hungry from the first eating. According to Mishnah Berurah, one may utilize this option even if one intentionally leaves his original location before reciting Birchas Hamazon, and even if one eats less than the kazayis of bread in the second location. Even if he willingly didn't bench before he left. This takona helps. In his new location, he should eat some bread. He doesn't have to start again with a new hamotzi. You don't have to make a new birchas hamazon what you ate before. Now in his new location where he ate bread, he has in mind the original meal as well. Even if you eat less than kazayis, it's mitzvah to the original meal. The Yalkut Yosef sums this all up, and with this we'll close. Person ate one place. The best thing is to bench where you were. Before you leave that place. If he left his place, he didn't bench. He must have came amazing. If you did it willingly, you should go back. But if he went to a new place and he benched there, you don't say. Now, if he left because he forgot, he must have came b'shogeg. Im yesh lo od pas, yochel b'mokum hasheni kazayis pas. In his new location, he should eat pas. V'yivarch b'mokum sheniskar and bench there. V'mein lo od pas, yivarch b'chas hamazon b'mokum sheniskar. You can still bench in the place where you remembered. Im hichmer alatzma v'chazol l'mkomo b'ich b'chas hamazon tov lo brach. If he's machmer himself to go back to his original location and bench there, he should get a special bracha. Next week, we're going to learn the proper manner to recite Birchas Hamazon, children in Birchas Hamazon, and then let's conclude Birchas Hamazon, and we'll start talking about other brachas, like Boy Priya Eitz, Boy Priya Dama. We've already dealt extensively with Amotzi.
Ernie, isn't the idea of benching in the same place where you make a motzi about kavod?
Kavod to what?
To Hashem. In other words, it says it's as if you're benching, at a king's table, for example, like at a king's table, you wouldn't walk away and bench somewhere else. But my really follow-up question is, for whatever reason you have to be pulled away unless you can come back, it's still midoraisa. Shouldn't it be midoraisa? And therefore, logically, I think that's where we end up, that you still have to bench, even if you have to walk away. But I don't know if that's. I seem to recall that's what the idea was, because we don't talk about the reasoning here.
No, it didn't give us a reasoning as to why the benching is done at the place that you ate. I mean, you can think we don't want the person to forget to bench. So we want you to bench right after eating, because that's going to, in one way, it's going to prevent you from forgetting to bench. I don't know what COVID, I don't know whether it's a pasuk, but they didn't give us a source as to why you're supposed to do this. But we've learned that b'shogeg, if you didn't bench when you left your house and you went to a new location, you can bench in that new location, particularly if you eat some bread there. But b'mezid, you should go back. Means if I'm not going to bench here. I'm going to bench in the other place. That's not correct. Tavol of bracha for him to go back to the original place and bench there. Is how the final halacha came out. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Next week Same, be back to